Today I have a special guest, and I need to disclose at the opening of this interview that I am a shareholder in this company. I own approximately, I believe it is 160 or 70,000 shares, and I paid a lot less than it's trading at now, so that is my disclosure. I will sell them or buy more at any time without further warning, but I want you to hear the reason why I became a shareholder of this company. That's why we're talking today to Quentin Martin, who's the CEO of Real Luck Group, trading in US under symbol LCKKF, trading in Canada on the TSX under the symbol LUCK. Quentin, welcome back, because this is our second interview.
Hi, James. How's it going?
I'm doing really well, thanks. How are you?
Very well, thank you. It's been a crazy roller coaster since we last talked.
Indeed, indeed. In fact, I stopped following the story shortly after our last interview, thanks largely in part to this thing we call a pandemic. And I pleasantly was reacquainted with Real Luck Group when my broker called and said, "Are you going to do any business with me? You've got this account sitting here." Anyways, it's full of your stock, and I'm up 300% since then. So thank you for that. I want to know what has happened in the last 12 months to drive the value of your company up by 300%.
Sure. I guess probably the biggest single catalyst was listing in the first place. So we listed on the TSXV just before Christmas. So that was a whole lot of work. There was an RTO through a CPC off the back of a 6 million private placement. And that really got us started. We listed at 42 cents. We're trading somewhere north of $1 at the moment. We've just closed another private placement of 17.8 million last week. Yep. And we've got a war chest. We're cashed up, and we're looking to see what ways we can make in the esports betting and global gambling landscape.
Sure. So, what is your ambition in the global gambling landscape?
Sure. So for now, we're focused on becoming the #1 esports betting destination. So you want to place a bet on esports, with esports being professional computer games, then Luckbox, our customer-facing brand, is the place to come. We're live in about 80 countries around the world. Accepting bets. We also accept bets. One of the catalysts you asked about, to help that growth, was we went live with almost every traditional sport that you can bet on as well. So I think it's about 105 sports that you can bet on our site in pre-match and in play. And we're gearing up for additional licenses, potentially looking to add traditional casino as well, which is an additional revenue generating vertical in the coming months. So everything is go.
Wow, that's fantastic. What kind of revenue do you currently make from esports betting?
So our last reported financials were Q3 last year. It's pretty low. I mean, we were talking sub $1 million at that point. We also spent less than $100,000 in user acquisition at that point. It was pure organic growth. With the money that we've just raised, we're looking at two kind of growth catalysts, I guess. One is organic expansion, so scaling our existing business through investing a few million in user acquisition, by growing our internal marketing team with the addition of our chief customer officer, Thomas Rasander, who's an industry heavyweight from both the gambling and gaming spheres. And secondly, we're starting to put together some deal flow roadmap to see how we can capitalize being only the third publicly traded esports betting company globally.
Yeah, that's fantastic. What is the entire market size that you are addressing?
Sure. So in 2019, because we haven't got 2020 figures yet, it was estimated to be about $1 billion to $1.25 billion in revenue generated from esports betting. If you contrast to the esports industry itself, which did about 1.5 billion, you can see that it's the single largest revenue stream within this incredibly fast-growing industry of the future, if you will. And then coupled alongside that, we're fully licensed globally to also do casino and traditional sports, with traditional sports being north of 150, I think it's approximately 150 billion in revenue globally. So a little slice of that pie would do as well.
Sure. In the context of forward-looking statements, at what rate do you anticipate growing your revenue Q on Q and year on year in the next 2-3?
So we're not releasing forward-facing statements just yet. That said, we're coming from a position we're early in our days of growth, so I would expect kind of strong and steady growth going forward.
You bet. What is your gross margin on the money you've made so far?
So what I'll report is that what our gambling margin, which is 5%. So that's not operating margin. That's just the percentage per user bet that we take in revenue. We were not reporting operating margin just yet.
Okay. So it's very early stage then. What are the industry comps out there that are publicly traded that we could compare Luckbox to in a sort of best case blue sky scenario?
So a blue sky scenario, probably more obvious ones would be like DraftKings, or the Stars Group, Flutter now, and GVC. Those are some of the larger gambling companies. The Score in Canada, gaming, and then two of our closest comparables would be Fans Unite. They're on the CSE, and GMBL on the Nasdaq.
Right. Perfect. Well, we had exposure to the Score from it was actually 16 cents, I believe. So that was a very pleasant experience for myself and my subscribers, and that was actually what first attracted me to your story in the first place. What is the timetable for global domination for Luckbox?
Sure. So I think we can get our revenues to a substantial amount over the next 2 to 3 years. License expansion into additional geographies around the world is something that we're looking at into at the moment. We're already, as I said earlier, I think in about 80 countries. So we can really grow our existing revenue base in the countries that we operate in, and then looking to expand into new territories going forward.
Sure. And is there much competition in esports betting specifically? I know there are in the other areas that you mentioned, but esports is relatively new. Are there many esports betting opportunities out there?
There's some. I mean, one key thing to think about is that the gambling industry itself is one of the most regulated industries on the planet in much the same way as the finance and banking industry. So in order to get a license, it takes 2 to 3 years of application and getting your tech stack fully compliant. Because of that, there aren't that many entrants, and it provides a 2 to 3 year barrier to entry. So we're one of, I think it's approximately 6 well licensed companies around the world. So I think 6 in a billion-dollar industry that are fighting for the kind of endemic esports focus, as opposed to the traditional gambling giants that have turned it on accidentally and wouldn't know what an esport is if it tapped them on the shoulder.
Sure.
There's a lot of potential.
You talked about your cost of client acquisition. You mentioned organic, and then you mentioned also that there's a cost of $1,000 per client acquisition. And can you just speak to that for me? Is that's not what you mean by organic, is it? And what is the cost of acquisition per client going forward?
So we're seeing a range of cost per acquisition anywhere from $50 up to a couple, $250, depending on geography. So, for example, in Latin America, you might be looking near that 50 mark. In Scandinavia, you might be looking north of 200. So blended average of somewhere between about $150. And the industry is generally reporting a lifetime value of approximately $200. So these are the kind of unit economics we're looking at.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So is there an acquisition strategy in your sort of business planning going forward?
Sure. So we're actually just refocusing on our theses here, just because we've just settled on a raise that we set out to raise 5 million and closed at 17.8. So we're just recalibrating on that. That said, we're looking at vertical consolidation. So any part of the esports betting value chain that we don't do in-house today is the actual creation of the odds themselves. We do all of the risk management and everything beyond that. So we're looking at potential targets there. Maybe looking at esports communities to be able to bootstrap our user acquisition efforts in some certain territories that are key to us. And then we're also looking at platform consolidation. So that's the various parts of the tech stack that we don't do in-house today that we rent out, potentially acquiring there, as well as artificial intelligence and gambling content that's created and focused on the demographic, which is the under 40 gambler that we specialize on. That makes us so different from the rest of the traditional gambling space.
Sure. Can I inquire as to, you mentioned you're in 80 countries, which are the biggest, most sort of active in your space?
Sure. So there are three key regions that we focus on at the moment. So Latin America, the CIS region, and then Northern Europe.
Oh, okay. So North America is not an option for us yet.
Not yet. The Canadian government looks like it's going to allow territorial and provincial sports betting later in this year on single event betting. So we're looking and following that with excitement. We joined the Canadian Gambling Association recently to prepare the way for that licensing. So we're really excited, and hopefully that will come in with good legislation that we'll want to get in part of. North America, the United States is much trickier since the PASPA, which is the regulation preventing states-based sports betting, rolled back a couple of years ago. It's still very expensive to get in there, but we are actively assessing those markets, and one day I wouldn't be surprised if we get into the US.
Sure. All right, Quentin, that's a great update. Obviously, I'm going to be looking to get more updates from you as a shareholder, and I hope that my audience is going to look closely at what's going on. But thank you for your time today. I'll look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Thanks very much. My pleasure.
You bet. Bye for now.